kind of sad when you think about it. I might never ask you for anything else ever again after this. It's the last assignment. When we started our journey together, we started talking about how the world is doomed and all the things that can be going wrong. Well, it's one thing to point out what's going wrong. It's another thing to do something about it. And that's what we're doing here. The formal recommendation report is what we've been building up to since the first day of class. If you remember the first day of class, we talked about all the ways that we might think of the world as being doomed. And I mentioned at the time that if you really wanted to be a success, one way to do so is to find an ultimate problem and solve it. And that's why I put you in groups with each with a specific focus. Because each of these groups, each of these focuses have a whole lot of things going wrong with them. And these are all problems that are really waiting for a solution. In other words, they're opportunities. So now, after we've done any number of things in this class, is the time where you get to apply all that knowledge and try to figure out how you can solve a problem. This is the formal recommendation report. 5 pages minimum, excluding front and back matter. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Professional formal long report. Check your major assignment sheet for the specific dates for your class. The scenario. Now that you have familiarized yourself with the major debates, concepts, and terminology of your field, you should have a reasonably good idea of its major issues and debates. Yes, I know I said debates twice there. Your assignment then is to propose a new product or an intensive modification of an existing product which will solve a major problem in your field. Like all of these, your group's field. Your report ultimately is trying to sell the product. Scenario mentions the major debates, concepts, and terminology of the field, and hopefully this is stuff that you've uncovered in your research. You can have modifications of existing products. These all kind of look relatively silly to me, and I certainly wouldn't want to be biking when I couldn't see where I was going or was looking at it upside down. But they are modifications of existing products, so they kind of fit in it. This is more a new product. Man, I really don't want to see people on jet-powered flying motorcycles. Motorcyclists are crazy enough as it is. The assignment sheet goes on to explain the format that your specific formal recommendation report will follow. And most of these sections are pretty much straightforward what you would expect to see in this kind of report. You will have it divided into 3 sections: the front matter, the main body of the report, and the back matter. The front matter and the back matter don't count towards the page count because they're not really argumentative or trying to convince. This is just required stuff. Formal recommendation reports. Target audience will be professional executives in your field, the people who can make purchasing decisions. So you will not be trying to come up with a product which you can sell to the general public. I don't know about you, but I tend not to make my purchasing decisions based on reports. The front matter includes, first, the letter of transmittal, the title page, the table of contents, a list of illustrations, then an abstract. Each of these are going to be on a separate page. The letter of transmittal is a business letter to the potential customer. The idea that when you submit your report, you're not actually going to go up and hand it to the CEO. It needs to go through the channels in the client's company. So you put a letter on top of the packet. Hi there, this is our report. Hope you enjoy it. Love, kisses, blah, blah, blah. The title page? It's a title page. Table of contents. 1 entry per heading in the text. If the body portion of the text of the report is broken down into 10 different sections, each one of them should have an entry on the table of contents with relating page numbers. A list of illustrations, which is basically a table of content for images. That way, if someone needs to look for a chart or a diagram, they can do it really quickly. Keep in mind the cell phone manual principle. We want information to be easily retrievable. The abstract is the 1 to 2 paragraph summary of what exactly this report is about, so I can look at that first and foremost and get a good impression. The text of the report. This is the at least 5 pages minimum. Keep in mind, standard document design rules apply. Single-spaced, 1-inch margins, extra space between the margins. This will, though, include any images you use, as long as they're not gratuitous images. I don't need to see pictures up for no real apparent reason. The introduction portion should only be 10 to 15% of your report. I hate giving percentages, but this kind of makes sense. If you don't spend that much time on your introduction, your reader won't be set up. If you spend too much time in your introduction, that's that much less of your actual argument you're going to be presenting. The introduction is divided into 4 sections: background, problems, purpose statement, scope. Background, give a generic, basic history of the issue of the company. If you're doing transportation, for instance, do not start when Henry Ford built a Model T. Recent history is good enough, just enough to get us to understand what the issues are. Problems. List out the big problems. Remember the problems in the field memo you did earlier? For your specific proposal, what are the problems you're addressing? The purpose statement. If there's an analog in academic writing, I would say the thesis statement. The scope. Are you looking to solve all the problems in the world? Are you looking to expand the company to do utterly everything? Or is your product focused towards a specific part of the company's business? If I'm proposing some new audiovisual technology to, say, I don't know, Sony, I'm going to tell them this is specifically designed to help you enter more effectively the computer market, as opposed to everything Sony does. The body/discussion needs to be organized as appropriate. This is covering your specific proposal, what you're trying to convince someone to buy. There's no set organizational scheme. It's all going to depend on what you're coming up with, but there's some things that I think a reader would expect to see. They're going to want to see the problem in a little bit more detail. They're going to want to know how your product solves the problems. They're going to want to know that the product is indeed something viable. If I said the transportation problems could easily be solved by buying our time machine, well, that's a little bit silly. And if you just said time machine, I'm going to want to see proof that you can actually build a time machine. So how doable is all this? How much is it going to cost them? How can they sell it? Conclusions. Present your overall findings recommendation. It's like a conclusion anywhere. Tell me what you just told me. The back matter includes glossary, which would be any specialized word and term in the entire thing that someone might not know. You're going to list them out because you don't want anyone trying to guess what you mean by a word. And a works cited. As a formal report, this is something that businesses will make decisions based off of, so the information needs to be verifiable. You can't make up numbers about the problem, and you do that in MLA Word format. Requirements. Please submit your final report as either a Word document or a PDF. If you've ever had formatting issues, go PDF route. The information on the issue itself should be based on the real-world state of the field. So if you're in education, don't make up something about education. There's plenty of data out there. Your suggested product may be based on speculation within reason. Within reason is a good thing to stress. Come back to that in a second. Cite all information based off of research according to MLA standards. Proofread should be visually appealing and use graphics as appropriate. Now, in terms of based on speculation within reason, if you can legitimately argue that this would be ready to hit the market in 3 or 4 years, fine. That's good. That's exactly the kind of thing we're looking for. If you're trying to present a product which we're under no way able to actually make, then that's a bit of a problem. For instance, if you want to see something that we can reasonably expect, autonomous self-driving vehicles. They're coming. People are testing them. People are working on them quite heavily. Will they be here tomorrow? Probably not, but they're going to show up. Human beings are way too bad of drivers to leave the driving to us. The technology will show up. In fact, it's been tested so much, I wouldn't be surprised if we have these things on the road commonly in the next couple of years. What's something that would not be in the realm of real possibilities? Don't try to sell me on you bringing a Stargate. The other thing about this assignment is you will actually be presenting it. This is standard procedure. If someone is going to invest lots of money, they're going to want to be able to pigeon you down and ask you questions. They won't do it just simply based off of a document. The document is designed to give them something to think about. You will have a sales presentation. And we're going to do the same kind of thing. Obviously, we're not meeting in class, so you're not going to have to get up in front of everybody and talk through it. But luckily for you, one of the things that businesses are doing a lot more of, even before the pandemic, is virtual presentations. It's usually used for people who can't be available for the actual presentation. You put an online version. So that's what we're doing. 5 minutes minimum. Check your major assignment sheet for the specific date for your class. It'll be worth 25 points. The scenario, the whole course you've been working on a major issue within your field, and your final major assignment is the formal recommendation report pushing a new product to solve a problem in your field. Before you complete your report, however, you will present it to the board of directors of your potential client in a presentation of at least 5 minutes. So, this is what you're going to do. The first thing to know is that while your paper is 5 pages long, you can't just simply read your paper. It would bore the living heck out of absolutely everybody. It would also be way too much stuff. You're going to have to give us a nice, condensed, rehearsed presentation. Because generally, 1-page double-spaced usually takes about 2 minutes to read for the average person. So you will have to do a little bit of reconfiguring of the time. The format. The presentation should include, at minimum, you briefly summarizing the state of your field and expanding on the basic problem. Present in some depth a new product which will solve the basic problem in your field. List in detail the key features of the new product. And present a new marketing advertising campaign for the product. Obviously, the major part of the presentation will be you trying to sell a product. Tacking the advertising campaign onto the end, it's something we're not doing elsewhere, but we have watched a video on ads, and we've watched a TED Talk about value. These are all issues that should be relatively fresh in your mind. Presentation itself will be a bare minimum 5 minutes. If you're 4 minutes and 30 seconds, you're short, and that will affect the points you earn. Should include appropriate visuals and must maintain your audience interest. Your presentation must be clear, professional, and well rehearsed. You will be watching videos of how to do PowerPoints and how to do presentations later, so that will be covered in a bit more detail. Your presentation must be posted online as a PowerPoint with an embedded audio, web page, a Prezi, a YouTube video, or any other format deemed appropriate. If you have questions, ask me. Presentation should be the equivalent of a 5-minute minimum oral presentation. It will be graded qualitatively, which means you can get 25, 23, 22. If you do a really crap version, maybe I'll give you negative points. Who knows? There are no revisions on this one because it's due right at the end. We won't have time. But you should use the presentation as a way to get a better lock on your final report. You'll be given the presentation before you turn in the report, and hopefully you'll get some level of feedback doing this presentation that will help you make your formal recommendation report that much more valuable. Now, the way people normally tend to do this presentation is by doing a PowerPoint for their images, doing a voiceover onto the PowerPoint, filming that, and putting it up on YouTube. If you wish to do this, there are multiple ways. You can embed clips into the specific PowerPoint and have it automatically play. And if you do that, you can have PowerPoint save it as a MP4 file. That's what you put up on YouTube. What I tend to use is a nice program called Flashback Express. It's a screen capture program. So anything that you see where I'm going through stuff on my computer, this is what I'm using. It records everything I do on my computer. And you can also record vocals if you have a microphone. And the best part about Flashback, it's a free program, so you don't have to pay any extra for it. Isn't the world great? I'm really looking forward to seeing your formal recommendation reports. In the past, I've been doing this assignment since like 2005, 2006 in various forms, and I've always found that what students come up with is as good as, if not better than what the professionals have been coming up with. I had students coming up with ideas for renewable fuel vehicles back in 2006 that showed a whole lot more foresight than what was coming out of Detroit. Knowing the problems, exploring the problems is the big step, but after that, you got to come up with a solution. And I can't wait to see what you're coming up with. See you next video.